I was not able to be seen on base in the OBGYN clinic. The war in Afghanistan had just ended, and there
Oh,
were tens of thousands of refugees at the base where we're stationed. So
wow.
they were outsourcing any new patient to the German economy.
You're listening to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast, where you'll gain the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to erase the unknowns, feel in control, and have an even better birth no matter how you deliver. My name is Liesl Teen, mom of two, practicing labor and delivery nurse, and your host. From over 8 years and counting of working at the bedside, I know that knowledge is the key to an even better birth. So tune in each week to learn about all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum from me, a labor and delivery nurse that's seen it all. And now let's get into this week's episode. This week on the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast, I am joined by fellow mom Katie for a special birth story. Katie reached out to me to share the story of her international birth as a mom from the United States. Katie and her family are stationed overseas in Germany for her husband's army assignment, and due to a lack of availability, she wasn't able to receive her prenatal care and deliver on base. Instead, she is seeing a German OBGYN and midwife and gave birth in a German hospital. In this episode, you will not only hear the story of Katie's birth, but will also use Katie's experience navigating a foreign healthcare system as a jumping off point to discuss what's the same and what's different compared to typical care here in the US. If you're interested in hearing another episode that deals with international birth after this one, I invite you to check out podcast episode number 45 next, where I had midwife Marley on the show to talk about maternity care in the UK. Hi, Katie. Welcome to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast. Thanks so much for being here today.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Can you start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you're from? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, so my name is Katie Leschler, and I'm originally from Southern California, but I'm currently living in southwestern Germany, where we are stationed with my husband's army assignment. And this is my very first army assignment with him. So this is learning all the things from being a parent to living in a new country to if it's new, I've done it recently. So
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, that's a lot too to do for the first time. Well, we are
coming off the heels of a pandemic.
No, seriously, I know. I feel like we're still, it's been 2.5 years and we're through pretty much almost 3 years and we're all kind of shell shocked from that experience. But,
exactly.
Well, we are going to be talking all about your birth today. So usually what I have people do is kind of start from the beginning. Let's talk about your pregnancy. We can talk about where you were when you found out, how your first trimester was, second trimester, third trimester, and then we will go into your birth.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Yeah, the day that we found out we were pregnant was the day that all of our household goods were being delivered. So we had been here for probably 2 months. We had lived in a hotel for about 10 days and then in our house with temporary furniture for about a month and a half, had purchased some new furniture. We're waiting for the rest of our stuff to come. And we had kind of been playing around with what's going to go in which room of the house. And so right before the movers came, I told my husband, I think we might have to reevaluate where certain rooms are going to go because we may need to be using one of the rooms for a nursery, and we weren't likely going to try the year after. So it was a bit of a surprise, but a good one.
Yeah, for sure. So because you were kind of already over there, were there any cultural differences that you saw, surrounding the first trimester, sharing your news? How is it over there?
Yeah, so we kind of are in this weird spot. Not weird, but because we're here with the military, we're around so many Americans. So we live in a German village. Our landlords and our neighbors are our friends and they're German, but it's kind of, we have the best of both worlds, I guess. So we have the comforts of home, but we also are within the German community. So, and I had this is my first baby, so I had nothing to compare it to either.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just was all new. It was interesting though. I was not able to be seen on base in the OBGYN clinic because
Mm-hmm.
when we first found out we were pregnant was when the war in Afghanistan had just ended and there
Oh.
were tens of thousands of refugees at the base where we're stationed.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of the medical personnel were helping with that effort. And there were tons and tons of women and babies and children who needed care. So
Wow.
they were outsourcing any new patient to the German economy. So I just had to find my own German doctor. So I emailed a bunch of places that were within 30 minutes from our house, and a couple
Mm-hmm.
of the offices emailed me back. And so I just went to one that said, "Oh, we can see you next week." So it kind of was a whirlwind, but I ended up really liking my doctor.
Good.
And it's interesting. And like, again, I didn't had nothing to compare it to except for what friends have told me about in the States. But
Mm-hmm.
my appointments, which were the same cadence as what they are in the States,
Okay.
the doctor did almost everything
Hmm.
besides going in for getting blood drawn and your weight and blood pressure. As
Mm-hmm.
soon as that was done, you went right into the doctor, and she's the one who did all the ultrasounds and things like that. And I had an ultrasound done at every single appointment throughout my entire pregnancy, which I know is not
Oh, yeah.
necessarily common in the
That's
States.
definitely not. Yeah. Interesting. Huh.
Yep.
So you said this answers this question, but when your first appointment was and the cadence is the same. So you probably saw a doctor in your first trimester or towards the end of your first trimester. And then it was like every 4 weeks and then every, eventually every
Yep.
2 weeks, every
Yeah, they
week.
actually
Okay.
give you these little books.
Uh-huh.
I'll show you it. It's pretty cool. It's called the Mother Pass.
Ah,
And everyone gets this their very first appointment. And it has on the first page a calendar,
oh,
and they
interesting.
write the date of every appointment, and then it has what's happening at the appointment
We
next
need
to
one
it
of
too.
those. That's so
It's
nice.
so nice. Yeah, so then you can know if you're getting lab work done, if there's
Yeah.
a blood test happening. And then toward the end of the pregnancy, I started to see a midwife also.
Mm-hmm.
And so she could do some of the appointments, and then the doctor did some of them too. So it was nice that everything was in my little book so I didn't forget anything.
Yeah, you have like a little guide to kind of reference to. That's
Yep.
pretty cool. Are you in search of the perfect pump for your breastfeeding days? Proven to provide more milk in less time, the Motif Luna is a powerful breast pump that's built for modern motherhood and covered by insurance. With a battery-powered or non-battery version, the Luna is perfect for today's busy mom. The Motif Luna breast pump is lightweight and sleek, quiet and customizable, so you can quickly find what works best for you and your baby. The Luna also features a backlit LCD screen, built-in nightlight, closed system, quiet motor, and auto shutoff. And the battery-powered model gives you even more freedom and flexibility with a rechargeable battery that lasts over 2 hours. But beyond the features and ease of use, the Luna works. In a third-party study, 5 out of 6 moms reported more milk in less time than the leading pump brands. As a pumping mama, I personally used and loved my Luna pump. The expression mode works to express milk as efficiently as possible, while the massage mode would stimulate my letdown by mimicking my baby's natural nursing pattern. Sophisticated, strong, and soothing, covered by insurance, get ready to make your pumping days easier with the Motif Luna. To learn more about the Luna and order one for your breastfeeding and pumping journey, head on over to motifmedical.com. And as a special offer for all MLN podcast listeners, you can get 15% off site-wide, including the Luna plus all supplies and accessories with the code MLN23. Some exclusions may apply. That's code MLN23 for 15% off site-wide at motifmedical.com. Before we go any further, you mentioned midwifery care. So how does that work? Is it similar to how it is in the States? Is, you can kind of decide to go with a midwifery practice or decide to go with an OB-GYN. Sometimes we have OB-GYNs that midwives work underneath them, or is it a totally
Mm-hmm.
separate experience?
I think it's about the same. So
Okay.
the midwife who I saw, my neighbor actually found her for me in our little local village newspaper. She had been a midwife at one of the local hospitals and had
Mhm.
just started her own practice. So was looking for new patients, which was great because just like in the States, there's a shortage of healthcare workers.
Yeah.
So when you find someone who can take you,
Yeah.
you want to book it right away. So about halfway through, my doctor said, you can start seeing one if you'd like. So when
Mhm.
I found one, we divided out the appointments. And so some of the appointments she came to my house for. The other ones I went to her house where she had an in-home practice
Mm.
downstairs. And then she also came to our house for probably the first month, every couple days
Oh,
when we were home from the hospital. So that was really nice.
that is very nice. I'm very interested in that. We're definitely going to
Yeah.
talk more about postpartum care because I know that's a big difference than it
Mm-hmm.
is here.
Yeah.
So tell me, before we start talking about your actual birth, how was the birth preparation? Was there a big focus on birth preparation during your prenatal care? So I want to talk about that. And then I'm curious what your delivery plan was.
Yeah. So with the doctor, we really just talked about what was happening in that moment. She always asked if I had questions. I used to be a journalist, so I do a lot of research on my own. So I felt like I
Cool.
never really had that many questions, which was maybe
Yeah.
surprising to her, but I don't know. I'm also in my 30s, so I've had quite a few friends who have had babies too. Not that that
Yeah.
makes me an expert, but I also knew
Yeah.
when, it wasn't a complete mystery to me. But I took your class.
Cool.
I think I took the one that was the natural one. I was
Mm-hmm.
probably going to have an epidural, but I figured if I took the one for natural,
Yeah.
then it would be just easy to tack on an epidural if I wanted one. But I also wanted to learn some of the other techniques
Yeah.
along the way too.
Yeah. For sure.
Um, so in the German health system, you don't deliver with your OB. So you just see your OB or your midwife throughout your care. And then when you get to the hospital, it's just whoever is on staff. Like I didn't even contact my doctor saying that we were on the way to the hospital. I emailed her from the hospital
Mm-hmm.
once the baby was here saying, here he is.
Yeah.
But the hospital that I went to did have an OB clinic at it,
Mm-hmm.
but I had already established practice with the other one, and that was fine with me because I always knew that even in the States that could be a possibility. So to
Yeah.
me, it wasn't bothersome that it would be a different doctor because I knew that that could be the case either way. So
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, let's talk about your birth and tell me kind of the days leading up to it. Did you have to be induced? Did you go into labor on your own? Set the scene for me.
yep. So the baby Max was due on May 30th. So I was obviously going to doctor and midwife appointments almost daily leading up to that. And then when the 30th rolled around, still no baby.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I would have had to go in to be induced 2 days after. But then I started labor on my own. I think on maybe the first, no, that's crazy. No, I was only in labor for one day. Oh my gosh. The baby's
On
not been
brain.
sleeping well, so my brain is.
You're good.
Anywho, on the third, he was born the fourth. On the third, I started having contractions, and I had had a few leading up to that, but nothing significant at
Yeah.
all, just a
Yeah.
few here and there. So right around bedtime, like 10 or 11, I really started okay, something's going to happen
Yeah.
tomorrow. And then throughout the night, it just got progressively okay, something's definitely going to happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we woke up around 6 or 7 or something. And I thought, okay, I need to not be at home anymore. We should go. And the hospital
Yeah.
was 30 or 40 minutes away. So I knew, let's go. So when we got to the hospital, I got checked in. I had gone to the hospital maybe around week 35 just to do a check-in with them so that
Mm-hmm.
they could get the paperwork and everything like that. And it was just like a US hospital. They had lots of different options that you could do. They had birthing tub, different birthing rooms, all the different equipment, things like that.
All right, the sound of that heartbeat means it's time for this week's segment of Birth It Up Babies. This one is about Birth It Up, the C-section series. She says, sharing my Birth It Up baby with you. He was born 1 week ago today on December 5th. We took your C-section course and we felt completely prepared and comfortable going into the whole procedure. I felt calm the whole time and was able to let go and trust my birth team. My partner also felt ready and educated. The whole C-section was a really positive experience for us, and I loved my birth. Ugh, I love it. I just love it. And she sent a cute little picture of her little baby. Oh, keep them coming, you guys. I love getting these messages so much, and I love reading them out on the podcast here and just seeing them in DMs. So if you've taken a course and you had your baby, please send me all of the messages and all the pictures because I really can't get enough of them. It warms my heart. If you want to have an even better birth, just like this mama, head over to mommylabornurse.com/courses to learn more about our 3 online on-demand birth classes.
So we got checked in and they examined me and everything. And I was like not dilated at all.
Oh, darn. Mm-hmm.
So, but because I already was 5 days after my due date, and I had a little bit of a fever, they kept me. So they didn't send me home because since I would have had to come in a day or two anyways to be induced, they said I could stay. So that was good. But then after about an hour of being there, I just was so worn out. I threw up. It was really gross. I was so tired, ready to just be done. And I still was not dilated at all. Like nothing. Nothing was happening. My contractions were getting worse, but nothing was happening to my body otherwise. So the doctor came in and she told me, okay, we have 3 options. And she started with, we could do a C-section as the first option. And at that point I said, yeah, let's go and do it. Mm-hmm. Because it had already been close to 10 or 12 hours at that point. And I was so exhausted. I already had gotten sick and I thought it could be another 12 hours. It could be another 2 hours. Mm-hmm. It could very likely still end up in a C-section. Mm-hmm. And I really did not want it to turn into an emergency C-section. I rather would have had it be not planned, but at least they had time to set up the OR and things like that. It wasn't, in an emergency, in the next 30 seconds, we need to get this baby out type of thing. So because of that, it took them about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get everything ready since it wasn't, okay, we got to go. Yeah. So that was probably the toughest part, was still having contractions, knowing that a C-section was going to be the outcome in the end. At that point, I was kind of just, okay, let's just get this show on the road. Right. And let's get baby out of here. But it ended up being a good thing that we did the C-section because he had some meconium on him, and which they couldn't tell any of that beforehand. So it ended up being a good thing. So I'm glad that that's what I went with. And I just don't think I had it in me to say, no, I'm going to try to labor for another 10 hours or whatnot. The outcome is to have the baby in the end. Right. To me, it didn't matter how we got there as long as the baby was healthy in the end. So I thought that was the best route to go. So totally. I mean, if you weren't dilated at all after that long of a time too, it kind of makes sense that, that's what they were leaning towards. It would have been different if you were like, even a little bit of change, making a little bit of change, like, okay, we're starting to trip, but it's like, it's absolutely no change over this many hours. And it's like, okay, the odds that we're going to have a vaginal delivery are starting to really go down. And you already said that you came in with a little bit of a fever. So they probably were taking that into, consideration. So I agree that was probably the best bet at that point. And I don't even know what her other 2 options were. Yeah. Because as soon as she said, oh, we'll do surgery, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I have a laissez-faire attitude about all this, but it all worked out. Yeah, exactly. End, so. Exactly. Well, let's talk about postpartum and how that was. So first of all, how long did you stay in the hospital? We were only there for 3 days, which was nice. I think they let us out a day early because they knew that I had a midwife.
Mm-hmm.
who was going to come check on us, and everything was healing up fine. So that, and the food in the German hospitals was not good. So we were looking forward to getting home and getting some. You could go out and get food, but obviously that's just another step of
Yeah.
my husband leaving to go get food and whatnot. So, but they were all very nice. It's all midwives in the hospital also.
Mm,
So it's the OBs, and then all of the nurses are nurse midwives. So
gotcha.
I think that's also a little bit different. Yeah. So on day 3, we headed home, and then the midwife came, I think, the next day. And then she came every couple days to weigh the baby. She took out my stitches at home, was checking my incision, things like that. So I didn't go and see my doctor until my 6-week appointment.
Ah, interesting. Yeah. So they pretty much did, all home care up until that point. When you were in the hospital, were there any nurses there taking care of you, or was it just the doctors and the midwives were kind of checking in on you?
Yeah. Doctors and midwives. Yeah. They're the ones who do everything in the labor and delivery unit.
Yeah. Interesting. Are you a third trimester mama that's wondering what you should actually be doing to get prepared for birth and baby? What if I told you I have a free third trimester prep pack to take the guesswork away? It's true. Inside of this jam-packed set of printable PDFs, you'll get instant access to our super popular hospital bag checklist, birth plan templates created by my team of L&D nurses, a third trimester to-do list with over 20 different things on it, my exclusive list of postpartum essentials, and more. It's an instant free pregnancy planner to get and keep you on track in your third trimester. To grab the third trimester prep pack for free, simply head over to mommylabornurse.com/third trimester. That's mommylabornurse.com/THIRD trimester for your free third trimester prep pack. So I want to ask, what would you say was the most challenging part about this whole experience? Being pregnant, giving birth in a different country.
Yeah. So I didn't really enjoy being pregnant. So,
so was that
overall, just for me, it wasn't super fun. But I think the most challenging thing is actually still to come, because I still need to submit all of my receipts for insurance to get reimbursed. So since I have private insurance on the German economy, you just pay cash as you go for the appointment.
Oh, interesting.
Which it's far more affordable than in the States to begin with.
Yeah.
The hospital stuff, that was billed directly to our insurance. So that's good. But all of the appointments and lab visits and the midwife bill and everything like that, I still need to get around to uploading all of it into our insurance system. And that's just, it's going to be a pain, but I just, when you have a 6-month-old at home, there's just not a lot of time to sit down and scan.
There's not
a bunch of paperwork and stuff. So that probably is the most challenging thing, especially because if I had been seen on base, everything would have been covered right out of the gate.
Yeah, like streamlined. Yeah,
exactly. But all things considered, I'm very happy with the care I got. So I would do it again. I would do it again on the German economy, and it was really good.
Yeah, well, good. Well, you already answered one question I was going to ask is how old is your baby? And you mentioned that he's not sleeping super well right now, but I want to know, are you guys, sleep regressions, they're tough. I want to know what's next for your family. Are you guys going to a different country? Are you coming back to the States? You don't know?
Yeah, we'll be here until June of 2024. So we're about at the halfway mark. Gotcha. So he'll be just around 2 years old when we move. And where that is, it can literally be anywhere. We would love to be able to stay in Europe, but that's not how the Army works. You can put your preference in, but they'll send you where they need to send you. So for the next year and a half, we're just going to continue to take it all in. And the German culture is so friendly to kids and babies.
Very cool.
So it's been really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, any final words of encouragement for any other military families who might be listening?
I think the biggest thing is, even if you can't be seen on base, if things don't go according to plan, wherever you are, they want to care for you.
Yeah.
Someone goes into being an OB or goes into being a labor and delivery nurse because they care for patients. It might be different than you expected, but I think especially with the last few years, with everything being so crazy with the pandemic anyway,
Yeah.
I think that I have a very different outlook on all of this than I would have if I had been back home and all this had happened.
Yeah.
And I've told this to my friends and family that I used to be like such a type A personality and everything had to be, plan, plan, plan. And
Yeah.
I honestly am not glad the pandemic happened, but with all of this, giving birth in another country, everything like that, there were a little bit of language barriers, but especially because we live in an area that has so many American service members and has since the 1960s.
Yeah. Wow.
Everyone speaks really good English. So to me, there really was never an issue with it. Even some of the midwives, oh, I don't speak good English. Like, your English is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fine.
I want to ask, have
totally
you
fine.
had to learn much German?
No, and I really wanted to coming into all of this, but unfortunately, it's just, you don't need it because everyone from the people at the grocery store to the doctors to everyone just for the most part speaks such good English, and our neighbors, we're really good friends with them, and they're the ones who own our house. So they help us with things if we, need something translated so we really feel like we're part of the community here, but yet they also like to learn from us too.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
I don't know really any German. I can read signs and read things in the grocery store, and I've been buying all German baby products, baby food, things like that, baby formula, which that was another thing that was nice, that we're breastfeeding, but there's no formula shortage here. So
yeah, that's very nice.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So things like that, yep.
Yeah. Well, Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. This was fabulous, and I think so informative and very cool to hear about how somebody's experience, is in a different country, because I think we maybe read about it or we'll see it on TV or we'll think in our heads how an experience is for another person, but actually hearing someone's story really is impactful. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's fun to talk about it.
Already feeling a little more confident about pregnancy, birth, and newborn life? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can continue to erase the unknowns and never miss an episode. And if you're looking for even more, Instagram is definitely where I hang out the most. Come join our community of more than 500,000 moms for birth education, tips, and solidarity. You can find me at mommy.labornurse. Check out today's show notes and a searchable library of every Mommy Labor Nurse podcast episode at mommylabornurse.com/podcast. And while you're there, be sure to head to the blog to learn about our online birth classes too. See you next week, and remember, you can have an even better birth no matter how you deliver.